Ross Chastain used the wall all the way around this racetrack. Logano has been the class of the field.
Check out the big brain on Brad.
Yeah, I need to change my underwear.
What's going on, everybody, and welcome to another Angle of Pursuit podcast. That is Brian Twining. I am Kyle Robert. We are here to break down all that is Nashville, get you set over on DraftKings, update the betting odds, because boy, was there some movement and a lot to get into. Brian coming to us live from Las Vegas. He is, living the proverbial dream. I am coming from the home studio. Brian, how the hell are you?
I'm doing great, Kyle. If you follow me on Twitter, I am already popping the bottles of Peroni that I have in my refrigerator over the AJ Allmendinger Xfinity win, which I was on really early in the week, and there were some nice lines here in Vegas that I was able to jump on. Both Kyle and I are on a Dinger Cup Series wager, which I'm sure we'll get into as we talk about the Ally 400. And, I'm having a fantastic weekend. I've hit 4 of my 5 baseball bets, no run first innings and team totals and first 5 against the spread. Like, this is a great Vegas weekend, and hoping that we close it out with a Red Dog winner that we got at 20-1 over at Westgate when I got here.
Yes, we did. Very excited to be holding that. I'm also holding a 25-1 on Joey Logano. Obviously not as good of a line movement. We could talk about that. But let's jump into DraftKings. Let's look at what the pricing is, what we think about stuff over there. Let's build a lineup and let's keep it grinding. Kyle Larson, what a surprise. Up at the top, starting 7th, 11-6. Kyle Busch starting 11th at 11-2. I'm going to go all the way through the 10s because there's only a handful of names.
Yeah.
Truex starting 6th at 10-9. Hamlin starting 8th at 10-7. Chase Elliott, average ass Chase Elliott, starting 14th, 10-4. Willie B starting in the top 5 at 10-1, rounds out the 10K range. So from 10K and above, who's jumping out to you? Who makes the most sense at that current price?
All right. I don't really understand the discount we're getting on this guy, but he came into the week as the favorite at Circa. He was the second favorite at the majority of other books, but Martin Truex Jr., put it in 6th here at qualifying, but he was a top 3 car in every metric during practice. Of the guys that are in this 10 to 11 range, I think he makes the most sense. You heard Bubba Wallace. I took a deeper dive after I heard him mention this, but he was saying how personally for him, and I'm sure this is the same for a lot of guys, they're looking at Nashville to be very similar to Loudon and Dover. Martin Truex Jr. is incredible at both of those tracks. He's coming off of his win at Sonoma last week, where he's clearly, his car has been leveled up of sorts coming into this weekend. So Truex to me is the guy.
Yeah, and it's interesting because, I'm looking at obviously qualifying results, but practice too, because it's interesting to see his single lap speed obviously was only 6th best, but in terms of 5, 10, 15 lap at practice, he was incredible.
Yeah, he was top 5 in every single one of those.
One of the few people to stay out for 25 laps. Kind of interesting to see that he was seemingly so fast, but also running a lot of laps. I'm guessing just his car was fine. Let's figure out the tire wear and what we have to actually worry about there. Yeah, I'm with you. I think he makes a lot of sense. Starting 6th, obviously the betting favorite, makes sense to tail him. I don't think Hamlin's that crazy either. Obviously, doubling Toyotas. Hamlin from a practice standpoint was fine, not great. He was more of like a top 5, top 10 type car than a super fast, but overall okay. You're never going to have to twist my arm to go with William Byron. Obviously good in practice, fast in qualifying, kills it on 1.5 miles. But as you mentioned, just the Dover Loudon kind of corollaries with this track. I think Truex is an easy call from this range. If you were to pivot to another driver or maybe double stack in this range, who is the second guy that really gets your fancy?
Well, we'll talk about him a little bit later, but it's the guy that you're riding already this week, and somebody that you and I have both celebrated on numerous occasions, but that's the top guy in NASCAR right now. And that's William Byron starting 5th. I mean, you're looking at somebody who was, top 5 practice, top 5 qualifying. He's literally running top 5 every single week. And when you're looking for kind of stability coming into a track that we're not really sure if it gets wild, like we saw today in Xfinity, give me William Byron in this spot. I know I bet Larson as top Chevy earlier in the week, but in terms of safe plays, I guess if there is such a thing in NASCAR, Byron is much safer when it comes to that particular garage.
Which is a wild thing to say after last year's roller coaster ride of ups and downs with him. The 9K range, we got Ryan Blaney starting 13th at 99. We got Chastain. He put it on pole. We'll talk about betting odds here in a little bit, but I am a little irritated at myself because I love Chastain, but he hasn't won in a long time, so we'll see. Chris Bell starting 22nd, 9,400. Easy partner with the Toyotas. Has not looked great all weekend.
He just hasn't had I don't know.
And he doesn't have the short run speed, but he did, and he was 6th best in 15 lap, and he was 7th best in 20 laps. So he got better as the practice went along. But yeah, it's not what you want to see. Let's see. Tyler Reddick, we talked about him. We're loving that number. Starting 2nd, 9,100. Kevin Harvick starting 17th we'll cut it off at Tyler Reddick. Of the 9K range, there's a lot of interesting names with Blaney, Chastain, Bell, and Reddick, but it's also a range that if you want to get a little weird or if you want to try and be a little more heavy at the very top, you can just jump into the 8K range and start building from there. So I guess if you're using from this range, is it Reddick or bust, or where are you at?
I can't discount anything that Chastain did. I think he's a great pivot play because he looked fantastic in practice and qualifying, and we've kind of seen this of late with him where he looked great in practice a couple of races ago, and then he just completely fell apart during the race. So I think that might scare some people off. So I almost feel like he would be somebody that you could kind of hedge with against a lot of other lineups that are going to pivot off of him, expecting that downfall. I have a little less confidence in the fact that he can stay and maintain up there, being it's been so long since he won. And if you were to ask me, I think Tyler Reddick is the much better play this weekend. I mean, Reddick, we talked about him earlier in the week. There's no reason why he should have opened at 18 or, for our instance, 20 at Westgate with the speed that he's shown of late and just coming into this weekend. So I think both of those guys to me are great plays if you want to kind of get wonky with your lineups and just skip that top tier.
Yep, I think that makes sense. Let's dive into the 8K range. We have Kevin Harvick started 17th at 8,800. My guy, Joey Logano, holding 25-1, starting 4th. Your guy, Bubba Wallace, who 8,400. I mean, there's an argument to say he could be sitting on pole right now had things not gotten a little
so
sketchy.
Close.
Coming around the turn. So he's starting 9th, could be interesting. Alex Bowman starting 15th. Brad Keselowski rounds out the 8K range starting at an even 8K. I'll ask you again, if we're going to the 8K range, who's jumping out to you from this range? Is it Bubba starting 9th?
So I like Bubba. I mean, he saw some significant fall off in the 10. I mean, he didn't run anything past a 10-lap run, but, he did see some fall off there. So that scares me. And anytime you get somebody of his personality traits starting inside the top 10 already, you worry, if something goes wrong early in the race, can he recover? Which, yes, we've seen him do it. And the 2311 team is bad fast, as the kids are saying this weekend. They've unloaded freaking awesome. And there's no, I mean, I got to touch on this. It's no surprise. They've partnered with Garth Brooks, one of the kings of country music of, the past couple of decades. This is a great joining of brilliant minds, in my opinion, this weekend. It makes me love the team even more. But, when you're looking at potential in this range here, you gotta look at Harvick, that the fact that, he wasn't fast, but he just has a knack for avoiding trouble, finishing races, potentially cracking the top 10. And because he's not sexy, I think people are going to kind of glance over him, and I feel like he might see a little bit lower rostership than we would normally see from him.
And he's rocking the sweet, sweet Bush Latte paint scheme this week. Very excited
Yes.
about that. Yeah. I think you hit on all the important ones. Bowman's still interesting, starting 15th, 8,200, but I get the hesitancy with him. And your point on Bubba, I think, is a good one. Like, there was some fall off. He can be really fast when he needs to be fast, but the long run, you worry about kind of something happening, and then all of a sudden he's doing something he shouldn't, and you kind of regret having him in your lineup. So I'm with you. He's probably a better fade than follow this week. Let's dive into the 7K, where we have a few interesting names. We have Ty Gibbs starting 16th at 78. Daniel Suarez, Trackhouse, starting top 10.
He will be. I would assume Suarez is going to the back of the field when he spun and nailed the back end of his car, and then he also hit, I believe it was the left front fender. So I would imagine that Suarez is actually going to go to the back after repairs. So
yeah, so keep an eye on that. We're recording this Saturday afternoon, early evening, so always trying to stay ahead of the news. Chris Buescher starting 12th. Recky Spinouts himself starting 28th at 7,300. Ryan Preece starting 25th at 7,100. I know it's gross, and we probably wouldn't want to do it with a bunch of people that have issues and incidents, but I think Recky Spinouts himself will be kind of interesting. He might be a little more rostered than he probably should, so maybe that's a good reason to fade him, especially in tournaments. But there is reasons to like him starting 28th. He's had some good track success here and could move through the field. But of the other names in the 7K range, is there anyone tickling your fancy?
I mean, if we're going to talk about Kevin Harvick's paint scheme being about Busch Light, you got to talk about Chris Buescher. He looked good in practice, top 10 averages in all 5, 10, 15, and 20. He was just on the cusp of making it inside the top 10. He had a pretty tough group to get out of, and he was right there. So I think Buescher is actually a better than a 12th place car that he's actually starting in here. And we'll see when we talk betting. Like, you can still get decent odds on him for this weekend. So for me, Buescher's a guy who RFK, they've been on the up and up this season. They've looked really good. They've brought plenty of speed to a lot of tracks. I know Ford looks like an absolute dumpster fire this weekend yet again. But, Buescher, if he stays out of trouble, I think he's more than capable of placing this inside the top 10 and potentially competing for a top 5, especially knowing that somebody like him is going to need a win, or they're going to need a ton of playoff points to try to potentially stay in there to get into the round of 16. So I think he's somebody to keep an eye on as a dark horse, still long shot to potentially win the race if we get some craziness at the end, or top 5s, top 3s.
Yeah, no, I think that all makes a ton of sense. Let's dive into 6K. Austin Cindric, speaking of the Fords, 6,700. Chase Briscoe,
No interest.
Allmendinger, one on Xfinity. We have some nice numbers for him to top 10, but in terms of DraftKings, starting 19th, 6,500 could make some sense. Almirola starting 21st, Eric Jones starting 23rd, and Austin Dillon rounds out the 6K range. I think we're both in on Dinger. Are you in on anyone else in the 6K range?
I don't think there's anybody there that has any sort of potential to do anything outside of move up a couple of spots, or maybe hit the lottery in terms of where they're going to finish. Their cars are not good. They're not particularly great at this track. So I think it's Dinger and nobody else.
Yeah, and I think there's some names in the 5K range that I want to get to, so I think that makes sense. Like Michael McDowell starting 33rd, 5,800, I think makes a lot of sense. I'd rather save a couple $100, get to him, more chances to move forward. Makes a lot of sense. Haley's are probably cross off, 5,600, hard to get to,
especially starting third.
Yeah, Harrison Burton, Corey LaJoie, 36th, starting at 5,300.
I love LaJoie.
I think he makes a lot of sense. And if you want to be stars and scrubsy this week, I think that's a good target. Noah Gragson, Todd Gilliland, Ty Dillon, Brandon Poole, Josh Bilicki, and JJ Yaley round out the group. Let's build a lineup, Brian.
Let's do it.
So I have I guess the initial lean is either Larson's going to dominate. We jump in on him at 11.6, or we jump off of him. Look at the Toyota, start with Truex, potentially double up with Hamlin if we like some guys at the bottom, and see where we get.
Well, let me just start off by saying that the Larson dominant performance is going to come the week that everybody has jumped off the train at this point, because when people are all over him, he just can't close the deal. It seems like right now. So I mean, if you're thinking that they're going to find a couple extra miles per hour overnight in which they cannot make any adjustments before the race, by the way.
He was fine initially, but as 15, 20, 25 laps, he got faster, he got better, and was able to put it on. So he's somebody that I could see getting better. But yeah, I'm with you. I'm happy to go to Toyotas. I think I want to double up Truex and Hamlin. I want to go down and grab LaJoy.
I was just so on LaJoy. Obviously, I mean, Spire Motorsports, they're not going to bring, rocket ships here, but he was posting mid to low 20s in terms of the lap averages that he did run. I think he ran up to a 15 lap average, and that's all you're kind of looking for a back marker of somebody of his nature, especially knowing that he was almost on the verge of cracking the top 10 in single lap speed in qualifying before he wound up wrecking, similar to like Bubba Wallace and Daniel Suarez. So clearly that car has a little bit of speed, and yes, they're probably going to a backup, but I mean, they're going to set it up the same way.
Yeah. So I like this start, and then we figure out the two other drivers.
You and McDowell, huh?
I just think he makes sense at starting 33rd. I mean, I'm happy to go to someone else if there's another cheap name that you want to convince me of.
No, I don't. I have zero confidence.
Well, the one thing...
Okay, let's Dinger. I like Dinger in with McDowell here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Because we could go basically at the top of the board.
This is real stars and scrubs.
Like, think about it. We could go William Byron, Chastain, Reddick.
Yeah. Christopher Bell, if we want to stay with the Toyota theme.
I just don't know what type of, what his ceiling is here. I don't think he can win. And I don't think that he could produce a top 5 car either. The only thing is we already have 2 guys starting 8th or better, so it'd be really difficult.
That's my only pushback. The other thing is Harvick starting 17th. I know that leaves some salary on the table, but I don't hate that.
Yeah, and also it is important to note.
Do you prefer? I guess go ahead and say your name.
I was just going to say 5 of the top 6 finishers last year all started 7th or better. That's so, as long as it doesn't get crazy. The guys starting near the front, Truex, Hamlin, Byron, are likely to finish close to where they began the race. And as long as they're producing fast laps, or if you get the winner out of that group, your lineup's pretty good.
Yeah. So if you had to choose between Harvick, Bell, and Ross Chastain, who's your favorite of that group? Or William Byron, I guess.
Man. Honestly, I feel like Byron, just because he presents more placements, he's been more consistent, he hasn't been involved in as many wrecks, and I don't see him as being somebody of the Chastain or Reddick mold. I mean, I'm going to add Reddick into here, where they're going to drive the car.
Reddick in too, if we want him to, he gets to the front right away and dominates in the jump.
Oh yeah, no, I think that's definitely possible. But then, if that's the case, though, I really don't think that somebody like Denny is going to be able to get up there. Like, if Reddick is that fast, it's going to be Reddick and Truex and maybe Byron, in my opinion.
Would you rather go Byron Reddick, Denny Reddick, or Denny Byron?
Reddick Byron, for me, anyways.
Okay, I'm good with that.
I mean, we got to stick true to our initial lean. Think about this. We are riding hot right now. We grabbed Truex like a bunch of other people last week before we even saw anybody hit the track, and we carried that over into DFS and look what it did.
How do we feel about pivoting off of McDowell to go to Stenhouse? And is that too much roster?
I just get worried about Ricky.
But like more than I mean, for his salary, I feel like he might have a little too much ownership. Let's see here. So we have I took McDowell out just to see if there's any pivots that make sense. We have about 8K to spend. So I think Stenhouse, Suarez, Busher.
Yeah, I think we definitely need somebody towards the back though, because
So McDowell's the play, isn't it?
yeah, it would have to be
Okay.
with this particular lineup. Yeah.
Let's save it. Let's figure it out. All right. Let's go over to the betting card. So I have a couple bets. Joey Logano at 18-1. I didn't add Reddick to this card, and I feel real dumb doing it. And I believe I even said that when we were recording. I also feel real dumb not adding Ross Chastain, who I loved, because I wanted to give myself flexibility.
Yeah, but
and here I am. Yeah. So I have Logano at 18. I have Byron at 8.5. I have Byron to top 5 at plus 130. I have Logano as top 4 at plus 275. I have Alex Bowman to top 10 at even money. I have Logano over Chris Bell and Byron over Truex as my best bet. That might not look real good if Truex goes out and wins again, but we'll see. Brian has a very tidy card. Reddick at 18. Reddick to top 10 at minus $1.20, which is looking really good.
That's a ridiculous number.
Kyle Larson to top Chevy at 3-1, and Busher over Keselowski for the feels. So we'll go to Caesars. I got Barstool and some other stuff open. We'll see. Lines are starting to populate, so we wanted to get you as much information as possible. So we'll look at what Caesars has. As always, shop everything.
Yes.
Find the best of the number. If you have questions or things you're looking at, please don't worry. Don't hesitate to drop them in the comments. We will try and loop back a couple times before the flags go green to give you our thoughts.
And also remember, on that note, that we get a night race tomorrow. So if you're out on the East Coast, you're having to wait all day. It's like waiting for a Sunday night football game. I think green flag drops at like 7:20 Eastern.
Waiting all day for Sunday night. So we'll start at the top. Martin Truex 4.5. Ross Chastain, he was as long as 12. He's plus 475. Kyle Larson plus 550. Byron plus 650. The Red Dog plus 750. Denny Hamlin at 8. Chase Elliott at 8. Kyle Busch at 13. Blaney at 16. Logano, we'll get down into these other names. So I guess a couple things, Brian. As we have what we have. We're very excited to have some of the tickets we have. But if we're approaching this board fresh and we don't have anything in our hands, let's look at the odds and let's see if we can't find things that are interesting at their current setting. So I think, especially for us, it's going to be really hard to bet Truex, Chastain, or Larson. Just those numbers are too short. Are we in agreement there?
Yeah, and let me just say, so obviously you got to shop the numbers here. But of those top 3 guys, I don't really care how bad Larson has looked or how he hasn't been able to close the deal. No way are you going to sit there and tell me that you have more confidence in Ross Chastain running away from the pole and winning this than you do Martin Truex Jr. or Kyle Larson starting 6th and 7th, jumping to the front and winning. It doesn't matter how good Chastain looked. The fact of the matter is that we have a very large sample size of what this guy has done running near the front. And there is no way in hell I'm betting him at anything under like 8-1 to win a race.
Yeah, no, that's fair. It is interesting that if his name was Ryan Blaney and not Ross Chastain, how the conversation...
I would not be betting him at 5-1. So we talked about that. As soon as Blaney won, we knew the overcorrection was coming.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's what the book did here. Like, obviously there was optimism coming into the week, and that's why he was 12 or 14. But for him to drop to 475 at Caesars or 5 at other books, and we'll look at the other ones.
Yeah.
When Tyler Reddick was the best in practice. He had the fastest time. He had top 3 practice lap averages. He was great in qualifying. For him to only be 7.5 to 1, I'm sorry, but give me the almost 3 points on Reddick over Chastain, just with what we've seen over the last month or so of racing. That to me, that doesn't make any sense.
You can get them. Let's see. I have DraftKings, Barstool, and so DraftKings and Caesars are pretty simpatico, but Barstool has them at 8 to 1.
Yeah,
I think that's a much better bet. I even like Byron at plus 750 more. Just from you're betting on who's going to win the race, and I love Ross, and I know he's really fast, but I mean when you're getting 5.5 to 1 versus 7.5 to 1, like 8 to 1, like give me the other guys. Even Denny at 8.5, I'm much happier to go there.
Yeah, exactly. Like I'm curious to see. I want to see before we go green tomorrow what the handle is on Chastain, just to see how many people are biting on that. Like I know he looked great, but how can you confidently place a bet on him to win a race at such a short number right now?
Yeah, no, we should reach out to Furman and see if he has some ideas.
Even go further with this. Even when Truex last week, he didn't even drop to that number. Like after putting together great practice and qualifying.
Mm-hmm.
Knowing how good he was historically at Sonoma and road courses as a whole, like I'm sorry, but that is way too short on Chastain.
Yeah, no, I think I agree. So Chase Elliott is kind of the last of the elite tier, and then it drops off.
Yeah,
we have Ryan Blaney at 16. Kyle Busch, who was pretty popular or pretty like a high favorite.
Yeah,
we talked on Wednesday, is now 16. Bubba is 18. Bell is at 20. I don't know why. So let's talk about
he sucked in practice.
And I know he's your nemesis. He was obviously not great in practice.
Yeah, I think that's the reason.
So his single lap speed was great, but they're worried about like long term. They just think he can't do it.
And yeah, so Logano is the type of guy that is going to need just to be a pit road call or something later in the race. There's no way he has the speed to compete with the guys up at the front over a long run.
We'll see. He always finds a way to get in the mix and when it matters most. So of the guys kind of starting with Blaney and down, is there anyone from an outright perspective that you're willing to take a shot on that you think could make some sense? Because Logano, I do think still worth a while. Even at 20, 22. But is there someone like, are you interested in Bubba at 18? Or is there anyone else? Or is it really just like, let's focus on the top handful of guys and not really worry and then focus on other guys for other bets?
Okay, full disclosure, I do have a $5 bet on Bubba at 25 to 1 at our offshore that I bet prior to practice and qualifying. So I am happy to see what he did practice and qualifying, but I don't know if I could get there at 18. Now, when you look at further down the board, if you're going to throw a dart here, and we've talked about this, each week it's basically especially after qualifying, you have a very small group of guys that can potentially win the race.
Yeah.
So if you are going to throw a dart, like I'm kind of skipping that 20 to 30 to 40 range. Chris Buescher, 66 to 1 there at Barstool, or, at other books, he's even longer. I believe I saw him at 100 to 1 someplace still.
He's 75 at Caesars.
Yeah. And so he's 80 at DK. Here in Vegas, I can still get him at 100 to 1. And I already placed a small shekel, as Kyle would say, on that because he showed plenty speed in practice. I mean, like I said, top 10 car in all practice metrics. He was really good in qualifying. And if you're going to throw a dart on somebody, why not go that extreme as opposed to going in the middle of the field where those guys are going to need the same, race scenario to fall their way as Buescher does. And Buescher may actually have a better car than some of these guys over the long run.
Yeah. I think I like Logano more. I kind of like Bowman more, but Buescher was better. The other name that, we'll talk about him more as we bet other stuff, but AJ Allmendinger, won Xfinity, was fast in practice, obviously stunk in or was fine in qualifying, only 21st, but was 9th in 5 lap, was 11th in 15 and 8th in 20. So he's probably a better top 10 bet. And obviously Brian and I, we got him at what, 325?
Yeah.
That's nice to have. But is he worth a look if you're talking, I mean, let's see, probably DraftKings. DraftKings, you can get him at 100 to 1.
I just don't know. So,
Is that a bridge too far?
Yeah, like, look, he looked great in Xfinity driving the extra colleague stuff, but Cup Series is a different animal. And I mean, RFK has been quite possibly, the most consistent Ford team outside. I mean, Penske, yeah, they have a couple of wins, but that's basically Logano and Blaney, which are definitely better drivers than, in my opinion, both Keselowski and Buescher. But in terms of team, I would say that RFK is pretty level with Penske this season. And so I would much rather hit that Buescher number than go to Dinger.
I'm with you. And with all that being said, it's probably a better number just to avoid. But if you are looking for a lottery ticket, I think he could make some sense. Let's look at the top 10 market because I think there is potential here. Is there anyone jumping out at current prices? Like Alex Bowman is now plus 150. I kind of wish I'd waited on him. The Dinger is plus 180. Is that a good enough number? I know we have a better number, but if you were coming to it now, is that a good enough number from what we saw in practice for you to take a shot? Or are you like, I would need north of 2 to 1 to really consider it?
I mean, it's definitely something to consider. But again, when you look at the top 10 market, if you're going to tell me that I could bet Dinger at plus 180 or go further down the board and get Chris Buescher at plus 250, who put it in 12th in qualifying and had a better practice, I'm going to take the extra points. Like that, those odds don't make any sense to me. And I feel like that's a massive overcorrection and massive, like victim of the moment type thing for the books and for sports bettors, that they're going to hammer the shit out of that because of what he did in the Xfinity race.
So what's the best number? Is 250 the best number we can get? I don't know if Barstool has. Oh, here we go. Barstool's getting their odds up. 190.
Yeah, the Buescher number is kind of ridiculous, especially post qual.
Yeah. So plus 250, I will take that.
Yeah,
I'm with you. That does make some sense.
And then even looking at that, Eric Jones plus 240, like better than Buescher.
Yeah.
Like, what are we doing? He didn't even run a 15-lap segment in practice.
Your guess is as good as mine.
Now, I do think that the Suarez is an interesting potential here.
Plus 225, even though he's starting in the back.
Yeah, I mean, you saw Sam Mayer do it in an Xfinity race. Like, Suarez clearly unloaded really quick on single lap speed, and he was fine. He was kind of low teens, like 12th, 13th.
Put it on pole, so obviously.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I mean, if you want to take a stab, I don't mind over 2 to 1 on that. Like that's a decent number.
I think that makes sense. What about some of these guys like Bowman at plus 150, Dinger at plus 180, even like Brian Blaney at minus $1.20, Bubba at minus 120, Logano?
The Logano price is good. I gotta admit, I did concede earlier in the week with you that the Logano odds opening were a little bit surprising to me. I know Penske, I've hit on it multiple times. They've been crap, and I dislike Logano with every ounce of my being. But put it in fourth. The only worry, again, with them is if this is the case of like a Las Vegas or a Kansas where good in qualifying. I mean, this time he wasn't good in practice, but he's good in qualifying. Like, are they going to fall like we saw at those other?
Yeah, that would be my concern. Is that he just basically is like a dumpster fire. Although in Vegas, like I think he was gonna be fine. I think he got in an accident, but yeah, he definitely wasn't as good.
Well, they
in the-
both
Yeah.
both of them sink like fishing sinkers. They were trash.
Yeah. Let's look at the manufacturer stuff because this can be interesting. Tyler Reddick at plus 275 to be top Toyota, I think is a fine price. Little short for what we could have gotten before, but I still think it's fine. He's just to beat Truex, really.
Yeah.
Logano still being plus 275 is really nice. Well, your guy Busher, 7-1. If we think maybe Penske stinks,
So
or even Harvick.
that's so funny you say that. I believe it's Caesars. I forget what book it was. I was doing some shopping before we jumped on here. I think it's Caesars. You can get Busher at 9-1, top 4, and I'm going to add that just because, like we said, if Penske shits the bed, which has happened more often than they'd like to admit, I think Busher has the best Mustang of the group this weekend.
I'm tempted to hit Harvick.
I mean, Steady Eddie, he's definitely somebody who could just, avoid all the crap and then work his way up for sure.
But I do like getting 9-1 instead of 3.5.
Exactly. Sometimes you got to just bet the number.
What do you think about Kyle Larson plus 275 to be top Chevy? Byron plus 350.
So I like the Byron call, and I think it's oh, you know what? So I bet Larson top Chevy earlier in the week at 3-1. Now, I would be complete Chastain fade mode here, which is dangerous. But if I could have Kyle Larson and William Byron versus Ross Chastain, I like my chances in one of those two guys finishing ahead of him. So I'm going to add the Byron top Chevy as well.
I like it.
And of course, it's going to wind up being fucking Ricky Stenhouse Jr., who works his way to the front and finishes the top.
1,000%.
That's the best number of that market, by the way.
Yeah.
Caesars is like plus 310, I think. Yeah, plus 310. It's too bad they don't have one of those here in Vegas.
Would be nice. Let's go to let's find the head-to-heads.
Yeah, I think there's some interesting head-to-heads I saw get released here in Sin City, and a few of them have seen some major line movement already.
So I think I want to bet Alex Bowman
over Ty Gibbs. I don't hate it.
Minus 105. Caesars. I think it's a good bet. Keselowski versus Suarez. Hamlin versus Chastain. Logano versus Harvick. Logano is tempting. Chris Bell versus Ryan Blaney. Almirola versus Briscoe. Busher's a big favorite over Stenhouse. That's
as he should be. Like when you look at their numbers, he should be.
I bet Byron over Truex at plus 100. Now you can get plus 120. I still like it, but you are fading.
I think they're just too close to call, honestly, those two guys.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
Like, I don't think there's an edge either way in that.
Ross Chastain, the top 3 is 2-1 as a boost. Harvick and Keselowski, and then Chase Elliott at 12. If you like Chase Elliott.
Trying to see.
Yeah, I think that's everything.
Did Barstool have matchups?
Not yet, unless I'm missing it.
Yeah, I don't see any. I know DK does, but they're kind of blah.
Let's go over there and take a look. Manufacturers. Let's go over here. Driver props. So Blaney versus Chastain. Logano versus Bubba. Ooh, Logano at plus money versus Bubba.
Look, I'm wearing the 2311 hat. I love 2311, but if you're going to tell me that you could get plus money on one of the best race navigators in Joey Logano, no matter how crappy his car is, unless Bubba is able to rock it to the front and stay there, I think there's a good possibility that Logano is able to just work the race better than Wallace and finish ahead of him.
Yep.
I'm not going to bet it, but
I can picture a scenario where it's like lap 75 and Jamie Little, or I guess it's not Jamie Little anymore, but
yeah,
whoever's walking over to Bubba. Bubba, what happened for being checked out of the race care center? Yeah, I mean, I was going, and he got up in my rear quarter panel and spun me around. And, well, all right, Bubba, feel good. I can see it.
Yeah,
Harvick versus Reddick and Bell versus Hambone. Yeah, like you said, there's not a whole lot to love there, but I'm glad I went over and looked at that. Yeah, I think this is set up interesting. Toyota at plus at better than Chevy, I think, is not a terrible call, but feels not like. I wish it was more than 2-1.
I will say it's interesting that that Toyota hasn't overtook Chevy in some of these markets, because when you look at the amount of cars out of that garage that could potentially win, it's pretty even on a week-to-week basis right now.
What do we think about plus 550 to win stage 1 and 2?
I'm going to go absolutely not.
Okay, well that would be minus 1,115.
That's why it's laid that way. Like, I don't think there's a single driver in the field this week, or that we've seen, at any race this season, that without them like being on a different strategy than somebody else is that much better than everyone, that they can just pace the field like Larson did, for instance, here in the first race.
No, I think
2021.
I think that's completely fair. Should we recap our card, give the people a best bet, and get out of here?
I think that's a good idea. Yeah, quite honestly, because I'm in Vegas, like you already know, I'm going to get well over my skis here. So
I love where your head's at. I love when you're aggressive. I like when I'm like not as aggressive as you. It makes me feel good. As always, if you find bets you love, if you find opportunities in market, please let us know down in the comments. Let us know your favorite bets. While you're doing that, please hit subscribe if you have not done so, and smash that thumbs up button. It does do a lot for us. It doesn't take more than 10 seconds for you. Gets you our content right away. So on Sunday mornings, when this stuff posts, you get it right away. Joey Logano, William Byron are my 2 outrights. I have not added a third outright. I wish I had Ross Chastain. I wish I had Tyler Reddick. I have neither. That's fine. Onward and upward. Byron top 5. Logano top 4 plus 275, which you can still get. Bowman top 10 at a plus 100. You can get a better number now. Logano over Chris Bell at plus 100. Byron over Truex was my best bet. Not as optimistic about that. I think both guys have a chance to have a really, really strong race. So I don't really have a strong lean one way or the other. Added Buescher to top 10 at plus 250. That's a good number. Added Logano to top 10 at plus 100. That's a good number. Alex Bowman over Ty Gibbs because he just gets us. And Logano over Bubba at plus 105 because that's what it should be. Logano top 10 and Logano over Bubba are the 2 considerations for me for best bet for today. I'm going to go with Bubba's not a rocket ship. It may come back to bite me in the ass, but I think there is a world where Logano finishes 11th or 12th and Bubba finishes 17th or 18th. So I am going to take the extra little bit of wiggle room at a better number and take that matchup. Brian, who is on your card and what is your best bet as we sit here on Saturday evening?
Yeah, so just like Kyle, I only have 2 outrights right now. I may add a third depending on the way the market moves. I mean, we're going to have a lot of time before this race goes green, but as of right now, I do have Tyler Reddick at that beautiful 18-1 price. I'm adding Byron at 8-1. I feel this number should actually be a little bit shorter. And then top 10s, I started the week with Reddick top 10 at minus 120, which is now down to 1-2. I added Busher top 10 at plus 250, which I could only assume this number is going to get way shorter before we go green. And then I had Larson top Chevy. I added Byron top Chevy. So basically it's fade Chastain week for me. I also added Busher top Ford at 9-1. And my best bet from earlier in the week was Chris Busher over teammate Brad Keselowski at plus money, which is now minus money. So I like the value there. So for my best bet, it's clear I am all about the Busher this week. So I'm going to go with that Busher top 10 at plus 250. The value is too good here to be true. He's starting 12th. He was a top 10 car in every practice lap average metric. So give me that beautiful number, and hopefully I come home and I get to buy my new golf clubs after getting the cash, plenty of tickets while I'm here in Vegas.
Yeah, we'll get to send Tyler Reddick a thank you card if you get to buy golf clubs after this weekend.
Oh man, I will like fly out to Charlotte or something to literally give a personalized thank you card.
Brian, it was good to chat. As Brian mentioned, the race is until late. So if you have thoughts, Twitter at Notorious Caro, at Brian_Twining, drop questions or thoughts or bets in the comments. We will try and loop back multiple times. Highly suggest checking out the pre-race poll.
Yes.
Wormy. It's a every Sunday staple for Brian and I. So make sure you check that out. And then always check out our guy, Derek Yoder, Derek Yoder _ on Twitter, his NASCAR betting preview show. He's got tons of really good content as well. Two of the things that Brian and I make sure we check out each and every week.
Yes.
For Brian Twining, I'm Kyle Robert. If you need a little pre-race content, check out our interview with Todd Furman, talking bets, talking bookmaking, talking all the fun stuff. Hit us up on Twitter, leave comments, all that shit. For Brian Twining, I'm Kyle Robert. Win all the money on DraftKings, win all the money from the books, and we'll talk to you next.